Imagine surviving enemy fire, dodging bullets, and outlasting artillery barrages only to be killed by the weather itself. During World War II, an estimated 1 million soldiers never fell to enemy weapons. They fell to something far more ancient, far more relentless, and far more unforgiving: Mother Nature herself. This is the untold story of how weather became the deadliest enemy of the Second World War. When we study the history of World War II, we often focus on the grand strategies, the brilliant commanders, the decisive battles, and the weapons that changed warfare forever. We remember the names: Normandy, Stalingrad, Midway, Berlin. But there is one enemy that historians have consistently overlooked, an enemy that killed indiscriminately, an enemy that showed no mercy to either side, an enemy that could not be negotiated with, bombed, or defeated. That enemy was weather. From the frozen steppes of Russia to the scorching sands of North Africa, from the humid jungles of the Pacific to the frigid mountains of Italy, soldiers on every front discovered a terrifying truth: the weather could kill them just as easily as any bullet. Today, we will explore how extreme weather conditions shape the outcome of the deadliest conflict in human history. We will examine the battles where nature itself became the primary killer, and we will reveal the shocking statistics that prove weather may have claimed more lives than enemy combat. This is a story that deserves to be told. To understand why weather was such a devastating factor in World War II, we must first understand the unprecedented scale of this conflict. Unlike previous wars, World War II was truly global. Soldiers fought on every continent except Antarctica. They fought in every climate imaginable, and they were completely unprepared for what nature had in store. The most deadly weather condition of World War II was, without question, extreme cold. The human body is remarkably fragile when exposed to freezing temperatures. When the core body temperature drops below 95 degrees Fahrenheit, hypothermia begins. Blood vessels constrict, the heart struggles to pump, the mind becomes confused, and if warmth is not found, death follows. But hypothermia was not the only killer. Frostbite claimed fingers, toes, ears, and noses by the millions. Soldiers who survived frostbite often face amputation. Many never fought again, some never walked again. During the winter of 1941 to 1942, temperatures on the Eastern Front plummeted to minus 40 degrees Fahrenheit. At these temperatures, exposed skin freezes in minutes. Metal becomes so cold that touching it with bare skin causes instant frostbite. Weapons jam, engines refuse to start, medical supplies freeze solid. The German Wehrmacht, having expected a quick victory, had not issued winter clothing to most of its troops. Soldiers wrapped themselves in newspapers, curtains, anything they could find. Many simply froze to death in their foxholes, their rifles still in their hands. But cold was not the only weather challenge. When temperatures rose above freezing, a new enemy emerged: mud. The Rasputitsa, as the Russians called it, was the season of mud. Twice each year, once in autumn and once in spring, the roads of Eastern Europe transformed into impassable swamps. Vehicles sank to their axles. Horses drowned in mud pits. Soldiers lost their boots and had to continue barefoot. The German advance on Moscow in 1941 was halted not primarily by Soviet resistance, but by mud so deep that entire divisions simply could not move. Supplies could not reach the front. Wounded soldiers could not be evacuated. The mighty German war machine was stopped dead by rain and soil. On the opposite extreme, soldiers in North Africa and the Pacific faced killing heat. Temperatures in the Sahara Desert regularly exceeded 120 degrees Fahrenheit. Soldiers suffered from heat stroke, dehydration, and sunburn so severe it required hospitalization. But heat was not merely uncomfortable, it was deadly. The human body can only survive for hours without water in extreme heat. Tanks became mobile ovens. Aircraft cockpits reached temperatures that caused pilots to pass out. Ammunition cooked off in storage. Weapons became too hot to hold. Malaria, spread by mosquitoes that thrived in tropical heat and humidity, infected an estimated 60 million Allied soldiers during the war. In some Pacific campaigns, more soldiers were evacuated due to malaria than were wounded by enemy fire. Dysentery, typhus, and trench foot flourished in the wet, unsanitary conditions of front-line warfare. Soldiers who survived combat succumbed to infections that their weakened, exhausted bodies could not fight. The cold weather brought its own diseases. Respiratory infections swept through poorly equipped troops. Pneumonia killed thousands who might otherwise have survived their wounds. Weather did not just kill soldiers directly, it created the conditions for disease to become a mass killer. Now that we understand the challenges soldiers faced, let us examine the specific battles and campaigns where weather played the most decisive role. No theater of World War II was more affected by weather than the Eastern Front. The conflict between Nazi Germany and the Soviet Union was fought across thousands of miles of terrain that experienced some of the most extreme weather on Earth. When Adolf Hitler launched Operation Barbarossa in June 1941, he was supremely confident. The German military had conquered Western Europe in a matter of weeks. Soviet Russia, he believed, would collapse even faster. Hitler famously predicted that his forces would achieve victory before winter arrived. He was catastrophically wrong. The first obstacle was not the cold, but the heat. The summer of 1941 was unusually hot and dry. German soldiers suffered from dehydration and heat exhaustion as they marched eastward. Dust clouds clogged engines and obscured vision. The advance, while successful, was slower than planned. Then came the autumn rains. The Rasputitsa arrived with a vengeance, transforming the Russian roads into rivers of mud. The German advance ground to a halt, sometimes literally. Tanks and trucks became hopelessly mired. Horses died by the thousands. Supplies dwindled, and then winter arrived. The winter of 1941 to 1942 was one of the coldest on record. Temperatures dropped to levels that many German soldiers had never experienced. They had no winter clothing. Their vehicles would not start, their weapons froze. The German army suffered over 133,000 cases of frostbite in the first winter alone. Thousands of soldiers died simply from exposure. Those who survived were often too weakened to fight effectively. The Battle of Stalingrad, fought from August 1942 to February 1943, remains the bloodiest battle in human history. An estimated 2 million soldiers and civilians perished in and around this single city, and weather was a constant factor throughout. The German 6th Army arrived at Stalingrad in the summer, expecting a quick victory. Instead, they found themselves locked in brutal urban combat that lasted for months. When winter came, they were utterly unprepared. The Soviet counteroffensive, Operation Uranus, was launched in November 1942, timed deliberately to coincide with the onset of winter. Soviet troops, equipped with proper winter gear and acclimatized to the cold, encircled the German forces. For 3 months, over 250,000 German soldiers were trapped in a frozen pocket. Supplies could not reach them in adequate quantities. Soldiers ate horses, then rats, then anything they could find. Many simply froze to death. When Field Marshal Friedrich Paulus finally surrendered in February 1943, only 91,000 German soldiers remained alive. Of these, fewer than 6,000 would ever return to Germany. The rest would die in Soviet captivity, many succumbing to the lingering effects of frostbite, malnutrition, and disease they had suffered during that terrible winter. While the Eastern Front froze, the Pacific theater burned. American, Australian, and Japanese soldiers fought across a vast expanse of ocean and islands, facing weather challenges entirely different from those in Europe. The tropical climate of the Pacific was a silent killer on an enormous scale. Heat and humidity were constant companions. Soldiers sweated through their uniforms 24 hours a day. Skin infections were universal. Clean water was often impossible to find. But the greatest weather-related killer in the Pacific was disease, particularly malaria. But perhaps the most striking statistic comes from specific campaigns. During Operation Barbarossa and its aftermath, a German soldier on the Eastern Front was more likely to become a cold-weather casualty than a combat casualty during the winter months. In some divisions, frostbite rates exceeded 50%. In the Finnish Winter War of 1939 to 1940, a precursor to the larger conflict, Soviet forces suffered an estimated 200,000 casualties. Of these, fully 1/3 were attributed to cold weather injuries rather than enemy action. The Soviet Union learned from this disaster. By the time of Stalingrad, Soviet soldiers were equipped with proper winter gear, trained in cold weather survival, and led by officers who understood how to fight in winter conditions. The Germans, despite their experience in the first winter, never fully adapted. Their logistics system could not supply winter equipment to the vast armies on the Eastern Front. Their doctrine continued to assume operations would halt during the worst weather, but the Soviets refused to stop fighting. Here lies the true tragedy of weather casualties in World War II. Many of these deaths were preventable. Soldiers died because they lacked proper clothing. They died because their commanders did not understand weather conditions. They died because supplies could not reach them. They died because medical treatment could not save them. They did not die in heroic charges against enemy positions. They did not die defending their comrades. They simply froze, or burned, or succumbed to disease in mud-filled foxholes far from home. Their deaths were often quiet, unremarkable. A soldier sitting down to rest who never stood up again. A wounded man waiting for evacuation who slipped away during the night. A fever that burned too hot to be fought. Weather did not distinguish between armies. It killed Germans and Soviets, Americans and Japanese, British and Italians with equal indifference. It was the most democratic killer of the war. World War II taught the militaries of the world a vital lesson, one that had been learned and forgotten many times throughout history. Weather is not merely a factor in warfare, it is a combatant. Today's military forces invest billions in weather forecasting, climate-appropriate equipment, and training for extreme conditions. The soldiers of modern armies carry gear that World War II veterans could only dream of. Moisture-wicking fabrics, advanced insulation, portable heating systems, and climate-controlled vehicles, but the lessons were paid for in blood. The soldiers who froze at Stalingrad, who burned in North Africa, who succumbed to malaria in the Pacific. They paid the price for our knowledge. Their suffering taught us that no enemy is more persistent than nature itself. When we remember World War II, we remember the battles, the leaders, the turning points that shaped our world, but we should also remember the quiet casualties, the men who were defeated not by enemy fire, but by rain and snow, heat and cold, mud and disease. They, too, gave their lives in this terrible conflict. They, too, deserve to be remembered. Weather killed more soldiers than we will ever truly know. And in the end, that is perhaps the most haunting statistic of all. Thank you for watching this documentary on the deadly impact of weather during World War II. If this video gave you a new perspective on history, please let us know in the comments below. Share your thoughts on this overlooked aspect of the war. Did any of these statistics surprise you? Do you have family stories of soldiers who experienced extreme weather during the conflict? If you haven't already, please subscribe to the channel and click the notification bell so you don't miss our next video. We explore the forgotten stories of history, the ones that textbooks often leave out. For more incredible stories from World War II, click the video appearing on your screen now. You'll discover another hidden aspect of history that changed the course of the war. Until next time, remember, history is always more complex than we think. In the Pacific Theater, the combination of heat and humidity created a perfect environment for disease. Soldiers developed heat rash so severe they could not wear clothing. Fungal infections rotted their feet. The jungle itself seemed to be trying to consume them. And this brings us to perhaps the most overlooked aspect of weather's deadly toll: disease. Weather conditions directly contributed to the spread of illness on an almost unimaginable scale. The mosquitoes of the Pacific Islands carried malaria parasites that could incapacitate or kill within days. During the Guadalcanal campaign, American forces suffered more casualties from malaria than from Japanese action. At times, entire units were too sick to fight. The numbers are staggering. During the Burma campaign alone, British and Commonwealth forces suffered over 100,000 malaria casualties. The American military recorded over 500,000 cases of malaria throughout the Pacific War. Monsoon rains added to the misery. Camps flooded. Roads became impassable. Air support was grounded for days at a time. Operations had to be planned around the weather as much as around enemy positions. The North African campaign presented yet another weather challenge: the brutal heat and sandstorms of the desert. British and German forces fighting in Libya and Egypt faced temperatures that could kill an unprotected man in hours. Water was more precious than ammunition. Vehicles broke down constantly in the heat. Sandstorms could reduce visibility to zero and halt operations entirely. The Italian campaign, which followed the conquest of North Africa, presented the opposite challenge. The mountains of Italy experienced harsh winters with heavy snow and freezing temperatures. The infamous winter of 1943 to 1944 saw Allied forces pinned down at Monte Cassino, fighting not only German defenders, but also the brutal mountain weather. Even in Western Europe, weather played a decisive role. The Battle of the Bulge, Germany's last major offensive of the war, was launched in December 1944 precisely because winter weather would ground Allied aircraft. For nearly a week, Fog and snow prevented a light air power from being brought to bear against the German advance. American ground forces, caught off guard and poorly equipped for winter combat, suffered thousands of casualties from cold weather injuries. The town of Bastogne became famous for its heroic defense, but the soldiers who held it suffered terribly from the cold. Many had no winter boots or gloves. Frostbite casualties mounted daily. When the weather finally cleared, a light air power devastated the German forces. But by then, the cold had already claimed thousands of lives on both sides. Now we arrive at the central question of this documentary. Did weather truly kill more soldiers than enemy combat? The evidence is compelling and disturbing. Let us examine the numbers. On the Eastern Front alone, the German military recorded over 150,000 soldiers killed by cold weather in the first winter. This does not include those who died later from frostbite complications, disease brought on by exposure, or the countless wounded who froze to death before they could receive medical care. The Soviet Union lost even more. An estimated 200,000 Soviet soldiers died from exposure and cold-related illness during the defense of Moscow alone. In the Pacific Theater, disease statistics are even more striking. The United States military recorded over 500,000 cases of malaria, a weather-dependent disease. During the war, thousands died. Hundreds of thousands more were incapacitated for weeks or months. The British forces in Burma suffered a disease casualty rate of over 120 soldiers per thousand, more than 10 times the combat casualty rate at certain periods of the campaign. When we total all weather-related deaths across all theaters of the Second World War, including hypothermia, heat stroke, frostbite complications, weather-dependent diseases like malaria and typhus, and combat deaths directly attributed to weather-hampered conditions, the numbers become staggering. Conservative estimates suggest that weather directly or indirectly contributed to the deaths of at least 1 million soldiers during World War II. To put this in perspective, the entire United States military suffered approximately 416,000 deaths during the war. Weather alone may have killed more soldiers than the entire American death toll.